We are the 80th briefing on the 24th of September. And of course, water is the new gold. And we believe we are the only recession-proof market. That's official. And of course, our statements are the best we can make at the time. But of course, we're not prophets. Now, what is going on in this economy? What does it mean for you? Reduction demand, right? People are working less. A lot of people out of work. A lot of businesses have been closed down. Less demand for a lot, which is keeping inflation down. But at the same time, they've shut down, they've gone from 400 wells to 100 wells in the Permian, for example. Farms are not producing as much. They're having to throw away food and so forth. And so over time, you end up with a shortage of critical commodities. That means what's called soft commodities, agricultural, oil, and so forth. And water is on that list. As I showed you last week, there's been huge price rises in water, and people are not protected against that. I do believe it's going to go on. We're trying our best to help with the water situation, but this is what you're part of, is this amazing evolving situation. I saw a pretty scary post on a group about people knocking on people's doors, asking if they can mow the lawn. And this is stuff that never happened before. This is in the Tampa area. And somebody pointed out people are probably doing this, losing their jobs from COVID. So that is happening right now. We want to do our very best to help people get busy again. With that in mind, I have a fantastic presentation from Ken Behringer that I wanted to play, which I think you'll enjoy. So without further ado, here it is.
Hi, my name is Ken Behringer, and I wanted to thank you for your time and just spend about 3 minutes with you to describe to you how you can begin to earn immediate double-digit yields with unlimited long-term potential. You can help us build a platform that puts tens of thousands of people back to work. At the same time, launch an Airbnb-style marketplace that'll accommodate millions of micro-utilities everywhere in the world that actually create a whole new asset class. And finally, we can disrupt a $1 trillion water industry. Here's how we do that. Since a dollar crash is already in process, the real question now is, how solid are the usual inflation bunkers? Where can we put our money, not to just hang in there, but actually make money? Let's examine some examples and you be the judge. So with inflation, your first thought is always gold. Gold is great. But even if it goes to the $3,000 an ounce they're touting, and we lose a third of the dollar's value, we didn't make any money. If we want to do bottom fishing, there's commercial real estate, a huge hit recently, but not so much a buying opportunity. Between the retail ice age, mass exodus from major cities, we really don't have any idea the type of impact it'll have on commercial real estate. Another favorite is oil and gas. Now, at minus $37 a barrel, oil and gas was a home run. But with long-term shutdowns, remote working, electric vehicles, renewables on the rise, traditional energy just is too unpredictable in the near future. With prospects so dim, it makes us looking back to the market. We all want the next Tesla. Now, the problem is, up until maybe the last year or two, the only people who made money in Tesla consistently were the bondholders. Stockholders, not so much. As you can see here, most sold too soon because of that. Now, in hindsight, we know it was a huge winner, but the stockholders at that time could have lost it all. How well would early equity investors in companies like Tesla have done if they got paid almost utility-like yields until that day that stock took off? How many would have not have sold too soon because they were getting paid? We believe we've potentially created that scenario. Origin Clear, is a fully reporting publicly traded company, has a corporate bond that pays 12% annual yield. So you get paid to wait. But once that stock outperforms the yield, you get to convert at 200% premium to your principal investment. We think it's the best of both worlds. So you can deploy $100,000 today in the early days and simply collect your 12% utility-like yield. When you decide to convert, however, you can take the principal home. You'll hold a huge zero-cost basis position until we create a major disruption to a $1 trillion legacy industry. That disruption is the creation of potentially millions of self-contained micro-utilities, treating trillions of gallons of water at every point of use. Asset-backed, high yields, these micro-utilities are resistant to recession and can do to water what cellular did to telecom. This in turn can help us launch a global Airbnb-type marketplace, independently owned, high-yield, asset-backed water projects, utilizing the power of e-commerce to replicate incredible disruptions recently, like Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, and Lyft. And the happy consequence of changing the way water is treated throughout the globe isn't just financially rewarding, but you're doing great for the planet, and we think we can attract tremendous ESG and impact fund investment. Again, thanks so much for your time. Hopefully I've inspired some real questions. Please call me direct, 1-800-445-7943, or just book on my calendar. That's oc.gold/call Ken.
Very cool. Very cool. I love micro-utilities. Now, the next slide is going to introduce us to a whole different world, which is, yes, we have an election happening, right? And there's two different parties. And I'm going to present two different points of view here. The first one from one party, the other one from another. And you'll see that we are actually working, we're benefiting no matter what the political outcomes. Both of them do things that matter to us. Let's take a look. The first one is Joe Biden, who spoke very tellingly about what we do, which is, you remember our technology being used in Spain right now and also being promoted in Wisconsin to turn manure into very beautiful organic fertilizer. Let's take a look at what he says.
In the United States, in my state of Delaware, we have a $4 billion industry, chicken and poultry, and all the manure, quite frankly, that is a consequence of chickens. And so it's polluting the Chesapeake Bay. What we found out, we've invested a lot of money. We found out you can pelletize this and take out the methane, so you're in a position where you can use that fertilizer without the damage that was being done before. The same way with horse manure and cow manure and pig manure. And we can create thousands of jobs in rural America as a consequence of setting up these small industries within communities. And so that's the way you'll be able to continue to farm without worrying about whether or not you're polluting, and being in a position where you're able to make money by what you do in the transition, as well as be able to grow.
So that's, I wanted to let you know right now that, in fact, today we have made, you remember I've been talking to you about that trailer park cleanup system called the Pondster that also is used at the animal farm level. Well, we just actually sold our project in Troy, Alabama, and you'll be hearing more about that as we move forward. So the Pondster is very much part of the support of all parties as we move forward. Okay, now on the other side of the spectrum, we have an old family friend, John Mappin, who is the founder of Camelot TV. He's a big Trump supporter in the UK. But more interestingly, he recently, he championed the whole Trillion Trees initiative of the, that is also the Trump administration got behind. And he's now acquired a Dutch public company to commercialize world forestation and literally making a commercial model out of doing something good, right? And this is what we're doing here with our Waters of Career and all of our projects, is doing good, doing well while doing good. Okay, so let's take a look at what John has to say. It briefly says that John Mappin was one of the primary champions of the Presidential Trillion Tree Global Reforestation Initiative that was announced while we could still be in front of each other on 21st January. And he wanted to work on reforestation. And now this company it's a financial instrument to help with global reforestation and make money doing it. Very interesting project. But John went ahead and he interviewed me about Origin Clear. Let's see what he has to say.
If I was to consider, why should I now invest in Origin Clear?
On a macro basis, water, of course, is an extraordinarily stable commodity. And in fact, like most commodities, we think we're going to see shortages in it. Why? because the entire world has gone through a downshift of production. 400 oil rigs became 100 oil rigs. Farms have reduced their production capacity. Migrant labor is hard to get. There's a variety of reasons why basic commodities are going to start seeing shortages, not today, but perhaps in 22, 23, 24. That is something that we don't want to look ahead to. The second problem is that there's quality issues. It's sometimes astonishing for people to realize how bad the water is, primarily because the post-war giant central water systems that were built for us were not stewarded right. And starting in 1960, degradation set in, and we've seen a gradual dismantling of our water infrastructures. The odd thing, John, is that money is being thrown around like water, but it's not being dedicated to real things. It's being put into banks. It's being thrown around as money, but it's not being put to work. What it means is self-reliance, people relying on themselves to take care of the water. And that means that there's potentially entrepreneurs who can service those people.
So now you've got this opportunity and somebody hears about Origin Clear, and basically they have an opportunity to create a business.
They have to be entrepreneurial, really. We'll teach them the technical side, but
right,
it's really more.
It's not so complicated. I mean, listen,
it's not
something. I mean, you know me, reason. I'm not the world's greatest technical person, but I could probably understand how to do it in a couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely, no question.
Right. There's a lot of investments out there that always seem to me, because they're just for the super rich. And you hear about these deals and, basically got to be a billionaire in order to participate. So I think it's nice that you've opened it up for, everybody.
It was the thing that people complained about the most throughout the years, was that they could not get the good deals I was giving to accredited investors. And finally, the Jobs Act, as we call it, freed that up. And today we offer them in parallel. We got the high net worth and the everyone, and the everyone literally it accepts credit cards. It's super simple. It's online. It's like doing Amazon.
One thing that I have noticed is that water is not getting any cleaner, and our need for clean water is not reducing.
It's rising. Absolutely
rising. So I've heard even people from Saudi Arabia, they say, John, water is the new oil. And, I take my hat off to you. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I have been monitoring, and thank you so much for sending the newsletters through to Camelot. It is fantastic. My granny used to always say to me, because she lived through 2 world wars. And she said, when things get rough, go for the fundamental products and the fundamental commodities. Good luck to you.
John, as I say, from your lips to God's ears, I appreciate your time. Keep up the wonderful work. I'm very proud of you, my friend. And there we are with that one. Now, yesterday, actually, I was on a live podcast called Discussions of Truth. And I'm going to give you a very short insight into this one. And then I'll be giving you some brand new news. So stand by.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. We've got 7 billion people on the planet. There are well over 1 billion of those folks that do not have access to clean water. Is that true? Is that accurate?
It's more like 2.6 billion.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's terrible. You sort of went into the clutter of the water industry, which is a very strong industry, but it doesn't change fast. It's very monolithic. It's huge. It's $1 trillion in services alone by now. And yet it's only treating 20% of the water in the world, which means it should be a $5 trillion industry by services. And so that's a tremendous missed opportunity. And as we covered in the beginning of the call, it's also hurting people's health. There's more people that die from water than war in this world, which is scary. Right?
Wow. You have a background in software, and you mentioned the algae software kind of brought you into the formation of Origin Clear. I want to get into the steps of purification and the technologies and patents that you have that purify this water.
We learned how to use electrical pulses to clump up the algae, and we use electrical pulses to clump up the sewage. So we're not playing with algae directly, but it's interesting because we turned away from algae, and now we're starting to get people wanting, no, I really want your machine to pull the algae out of a lake, pull it out of any kind of body of water. We have that capability, so almost treating algae as a pollutant, right? Which it is.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
so you can be pulling algae out just because you got to get rid of it, and there's the algae blooms here in Florida are terrible. There's the lagoons and Lake Okeechobee and so forth. Okay, there's that. The second part is algae as a potential fertilizer, what we call a soil conditioner. We have a joint venture, a French joint venture that proved in the UAE with a year-long program that they could turn wastewater into algae energy and fertilizer to flower the desert. And that was very, very exciting.
Operations in LA, Texas, Virginia, and China, I understand. Ladies and gentlemen, Riggs Eckelberry. Water is the new gold, folks. Water is the new gold. Riggs, some closing comments here for listeners, please.
What I love about what we're doing right now is we feel that just like how Airbnb broke the hotel paradigm and Uber broke the taxi paradigm, we believe we're breaking the central water, the big water paradigm. So we believe in being able to take your own fate in your own hands. That's what the future of water is. And I'm privileged to be in it. So I'm super excited. I would love to have people visit originclear.com. I'm grateful for the chance. It's so much fun talking about it with you, Ian. It's a real pleasure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it as well. And I appreciate equally you joining the program to discuss the truth. I look forward to keeping in touch with you, sir.
Well, that's it for the recordings, but I wanted to let you know one little piece of news here. Today, I was interviewed on a huge podcast, one of the very top podcasts in the world called The Conscious Millionaire. And J.V. Crum, who's very famous, decided that my theme for the podcast was disruption as a source of entrepreneurial liberation. Wow, we had an amazing podcast. And just to give you an idea of what this podcast is, 12 million listeners, 190 countries, 2,000 episodes. Amazing. He's got a number one book on Amazon. J.V. Crum was an amazing chat. We will know in a couple of weeks when it comes out. But here is a snapshot of today's, it was literally this afternoon, and it was a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to now stop sharing because there's a couple pieces of news that I wanted to share. Participating in our future. What does that mean? Breaking news. Millennium and Strats Trust, which are basically IRA trustee funds, right? You can put your money in there and you can then self-direct your investments with both Millennium and Strats. They have approved our new Regulation A offering. Remember what Regulation A is? It's where anybody can invest. You don't have to be accredited, quote unquote. Well, now you can invest from within your IRA into our Regulation A offering. And this means that investors can look forward to 10% dividends, and there's all kinds of small print on that. Just go to oc.gold/offering to see the offering circular. And we, at our discretion, can repay you. When we decide to repay you, we repay you 150%. So you put in $1,000, we give you back $1,500, and you made 10% along the way. Only a $500 minimum. Now think about doing that inside an IRA with tax-deferred gains. That is very exciting. So well done to Devin for having taken care of that with both Millennium friends at both Millennium and Strats. They're wonderful people. Okay, I'm not going to cover this next slide too much because you heard Ken talk about it earlier, but you will not find a 12% annual yield anywhere that's not super speculative. And remember that we give you 25% of your investment right off the bat as convertible stock, and you redeem for double at a later price. Somebody told me, and I think this is correct, that basically it's a capital rate of 37%. That means you're dividing your current 1 year earnings by your investment. 37% is huge. And normally you only get that, as I said, for speculative. I have to tell you that right now, I've gone to cash. The only stock that I own today is Origin Clear stock. And I'm just extremely paranoid about the stock market. Now, why do I own Origin Clear stock? Well, of course, because I love Origin Clear. But in addition, Origin Clear stock does not go with the market. It has its own dynamic. It's always been that way. So I'm not really concerned about the stock, and I'm happy to hold. But everything else, I'm out. And I have been, okay, I'm going to tell you, people are going to laugh, but I'm buying junk silver, dimes, quarters, half dollars. That's what I'm doing. But of course, but that doesn't it doesn't make you money, right? It's like, okay, you stick it in the safe, and if down the road you have to pay for bread with silver dimes, at least you have that. But that's, God forbid we should come to that. Really what this is about is making real money from your money. Okay, so let's take a look here. Why are you investing? Because remember that there's a COVID hit workforce of 80,000 businesses that need a new entrepreneurial opportunities, water as a career. You are creating revenue and assets from these finance water equipment systems. And remember, those assets are intended eventually to get us onto the NASDAQ. That's my personal hope. And we have this vision for down the road, building this Airbnb for water where there can be passive investment in water equipment. You get paid to wait, as Ken likes to say. So this is a wonderful model, and I'm going to give you the contact information here. Please join Ken Behringer. Easiest way is put it into your browser, oc.gold/Ken, and he will be happy to talk to you about this. Ken is not a fundraiser. He's VP of Business Development, first of all, but secondly, he is a co-strategist with me. He has been developing the entire model hand in hand with me of investor marketplaces, investor water, the whole Airbnb for water concept, as well as water as a career. We've been doing this for months now, literally, syncing up, mind melding, and he is an amazing guy. So you will, talk to him. He's just fantastic. We have to tell you that I've been talking about Regulation D offerings with these accredited investors, and these are not registered offerings. Now, next week, I want you to join me next week, and here's why. I'm going to ask Tom Marchicello to come on board. We've had some big wins. Things are going very well in Texas. He's going to be updating us on that. He's going to be telling us about this Pondster sale. The Pondster is now going to go live, and this is going to be a huge, the Pondster is such a unique technology. The market just doesn't have it. Just putting this little unit next to a pond of any kind, and it just runs through the water, and before you know it, it's crystal clear. Amazing. He'll also tell us more about that hotel deal and how we're following up on that with the whole hotel water for your purification. Lots of fun. So please do join. It's going to be lots of fun. It's been a good briefing. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can tell, the fame is spreading about what we're doing here. The word is getting out, and you are part of a movement. We will look back on this as the time we were building this opportunity to change the water industry. Paul Fetcher says, thanks, Riggs. Paul is probably there's not a lot of people I've known as long as I've known Paul. And what Paul and I met when I arrived in New York in 1982, and we became fast friends. And Paul has strong opinions on the commercial RE market. Well, you know what, Paul? Why don't we interview you? He's actually a major investor in Origin Clear. He's been one of our strong supporters. We should interview you because he is just an amazing guy, and he sure knows commercial real estate for restaurants. And I'm very keenly interested in what's going to happen there. So we'll bring you in. And Ken Behringer says, my former LB pal. And Bob Roos says, I'm very encouraged. Keep up the good work. Bob Roos has an amazing video where I've played it before, testimonial video. We appreciate that. He's another one of the huge players. Okay, what is the money being used for? Are the operations cash flow positive? Yes, our operations in Texas are cash flow positive. In fact, they always have been. What's been an expense is these developing new markets and stuff like that. The money that you invest will be used, of course, to pay for these lab activities, no question, but also to fund demand for machines that I have right now. I can put out machines on rental, putting people into business right now. So that is where it's at. Mary says, did you see the article in today's Wall Street Journal about how NASDAQ is going to start having water futures tied to the water market in California? Wow, that is huge. In fact, a good friend of mine is Ravi Mehta, has a company called Water Ledger that is going to benefit from this because they resell excess water rights. So the farmer, usually he just uses up the water because he doesn't want to lose it next year. Well, now he doesn't have to. He can sell it and still get the same allocation next year. So that is great news. Thank you, Mary, for having told us that. Double checking the site for the non-accredited investor, offering.originclear.com, which will take me to the 10% annual. Exactly, Kevin. So go to offering.originclear.com and you will get your 10% annual offer. You can use a credit card. It's super simple. You won't have to talk to anybody. $500 minimum. And when the time comes at our discretion, but of course it's going to happen, but we say when, you get 150% back. It's beautiful. It's simple. And we do plan eventually to list this Regulation A. It's what's actually called a Series M bond on the stock market to trade once this offering is closed. Okay, how can you do it from I've had a couple of people asking how to do it from your IRA. Very simple. Contact Devin. We previously gave you Devin's number. He's also emailable at invest@originclear.com. Devin is at 877-440-4603, extension 116. And he will tell you all about it. He's an expert at working with Millennium and Strats. He's really got it nailed down. So that's fantastic. That's it. I think we've covered it. I'm loving the chats. I'm glad you guys and gals started to speak up because I was feeling lonely here, but it was excellent. Paul Fetcher, we're going to bring you on. Can't wait. Tom Marchisello next week will cover the news out of Texas. I guarantee you it's going to be a good show. So do come back. Everyone, have a great weekend. It's been a fun show. Catch you next week. Cheers now.